Welcome to it, Sunday Live here with the Average Joe Sports Show. As we say hi to the pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, is on assignment, actually traveling back from being on assignment with UNO basketball. We'll get caught up with Sharpie another time. Appreciate him as always. And he got to pull the double dip yesterday. He saw the Gophers and UCLA and then UNO last night. We all gathered round and watched Nebraska basketball trounce USC. Great second half. We may make this Average Joe Sunday Live the Sam Hoiberg appreciation pod for the month of March. One of many, fellas, because he was the difference. We'll talk a little Husker baseball. Tough one as they were run-ruled yesterday. And yes, Coach Rhule and you had Owen Chambliss and a couple of other Huskers talk spring ball yesterday. So, fellas, we are in spring football. I know. I was talking to a couple of buddies last night, and I'm like, hey, I still feel obligated to hit spring football, because we've done that in the last 40 years. And he's like, yeah, we want to hear more about basketball, baseball, what's going on. And we'll do what the people want for sure. But man, basketball supreme this month. It's going to be fast and furious. Fellas, we're a week away from the end of the regular season. Another showdown Tuesday with UCLA, and then Iowa and Senior Day, and an Average Joe Road Show on Sunday for pre and post game. So thoughts last night, yesterday afternoon. I know, Elijah, you had to head out to cover some district basketball, but you saw about 80% of the ball game. You both knew or know I was extremely cranky yesterday. and it was just because of the same old, where we're going to roll the dice and see what whistle call we get today. Just all the stoppages and delays and reviews and just idiocy. And oh, by the way, Nebraska didn't care. They smoked USC in the second half.
What and everything flipped, Schmidt, as soon as I turned it off to go do high school basketball. You say I watched most of the game. I watched the game whenever it was close. And then as soon as I get out of there, I get off to Lincoln High, which we had a really good district basketball game last night. Justice Rhodey and myself, by the way. A lot of fun there as Lincoln High advances take on Creighton Prep in the A3 district. As soon as I left, Nebraska goes on a huge run. Price is knocking down threes. Sam's getting into the paint at will. You got Frager getting inside. Rink dunks as soon as I leave. Like, everything flipped as soon as the game's off for me. So you're welcome, Nebraska fans. That was all me. As soon as I shut it off, everything got better.
Is it an omen, Bill, about Elijah and Nebraska's opening round NCAA tournament game?
Yeah, well, if that's going to be the case, I think Husker basketball fans will just chip in and buy Elijah a gas card, and he could just drive around the Highway 6, Highway 2 loop in Lincoln and call it good on Husker game days. Look, it was so bad in the first half that Schmidt got so petulant that he left our table and went to sit with somebody else's mom away from us. So, like Arenas did.
Only if that mom would have looked like Arenas' mom. How crazy was that? Like, there's camera shots of Arenas.
Stacey's mom's got it going on, but I mean, come on, go sit with your team for Pete's sake.
Well, that's just weird. It's weird and creepy where you got a freaking grown man with NBA talent that's sitting there with his mom because he doesn't feel well.
Well, we assume that was his mom, but I don't know. But yeah, why are you not sitting with your teammates? That
the
was the most odd
broadcast
thing.
Said it was his mother.
Okay. Well, whatever. Look, yesterday in the second half, it was kind of really the microcosm of what we've seen from this Nebraska basketball team through probably the last month or so, even with the games that they lost. Nebraska's been competitive in the second half. They got down big to Illinois, came back, got down to Purdue, came back, had a chance other than a slippery floor. I've talked many times, their 4 losses are by less than 20 points into all of the best teams in the league. And if you look around the country, other teams have had that similar case happen to them. Houston lost 3 in a row, had to play Iowa State, Kansas, and was it Arizona, and they lost, all three. Nobody's saying, well, Houston's not that good anymore. They've actually gotten beat kind of handily in a couple of those games. So Nebraska's fought in every game so far this season, and sometimes they fought themselves, right? So that was something that they survived their first half. And I think we determined yesterday, and I know we're right about this, that this is clearly Sam Hoiberg's team, and they're going to go as far with Sam as he'll take them. At the beginning of the year, I think you would have said this is ranked Matt's team, and that's ever since he got sick before Michigan and at Michigan, and for a couple of weeks, he's not been the same player. And maybe that's because the knees are starting to feel some wear and tear. The dunk was shocking. But I mentioned yesterday, and you got to go back in time. He's looked like Richard Van Polgeest at times. And, not that Richard wasn't a great player, but he didn't have a lot of touch around the rim. And Rink's kind of fallen into that trap. But
let's be honest about
Sam's
Van Polgeest. He broke some backboards, brother.
Yeah, well, in the wrong way. But like Sam's effort and intensity and personality and moxie, all that makes this a Sweet 16 team. I don't know if they can go beyond that, but he is the most important player on that team.
Well, think about the fact we got to halftime yesterday, and I'm picking up the equipment from Schmidt down at a downtown establishment who shall remain nameless. They're a bit of a chain, so they don't need any extra free advertising. But we get to halftime.
Need some people though.
We get to halftime. And it's one of those things where I can't believe I just said that. You get to halftime and say, well, you didn't have Sam for 10 minutes. You're just down by 5. That's the point we're at. It's like, that's how valuable he is to this team, that he had to sit for so much of that half because of some terrible foul calls. And you sit there and you say, well, you didn't have him for over 10 minutes that half and you're only down by 5. That's how much of a linchpin he is to this team. And we've been talking about it for weeks now, just his story. And I've been saying he's going to be the hardest guy to replace in this team because there's no one that plays like him in college basketball. And it was evidenced at the end of that first half. Nebraska's offense just looked a little bit clunky with him sitting on the bench for as long as he did. And that's a credit to him, the growth in his game, the development. Like, he is that good. He is that important to this team that whenever you do have to play extended minutes without him, it's just holding on for dear life. And Nebraska was holding on for dear life at points at the end of that first half. They were just down by 5, and you see once he gets back into that game, the explosion that happens. But he is just so crucial, and the defense stands out. But offensively, the just the comfort that he has as a ball handler and as a distributor makes that offense click.
Well, you think about the opening 5 of the second half, where it's free Sam. He's off the bench with the 2 fouls. And he goes 2 for 3 from field goal range, banks in a 3, a handful from the corner, Doleman style, and then he gets a couple rebounds, gets a couple of assists, gets a steal, and things flip. And you had that massive run where Nebraska took over. What did it end up being? 15-0 spot? Is that right?
Something like that. And
something like that.
11, and
yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And you had a couple of those tidal wave runs Nebraska got going in the second half, and it was all because of Hoiberg. I thought Berke played really well. And then, of course, let's spend a moment on Price with not only his sharp shooting, but his third 30-point game. He continues to climb the ladder with 3-point makes in conference. But I love Price's grittiness. He was getting held and bumped and elbowed and all sorts of things, and he's fighting through that, and it's different than kind of the demeanor if we go back to even the Iowa game, right? So he's stepped his game up. I thought Game Dog made a great point. And when we were talking yesterday morning, I was nitpicky on this basketball team about, all right, what do they look like? I know where their standings are. They looked like old form yesterday, especially in that second half. And Game Dog's right. On the last day of February, Nebraska played its best half of basketball the entire month. And I think that's what you want to see moving forward, clearly for wins. But just, I think the question mark with this basketball team is what can the dream really be? It's yes, you're going to take one in March in the tournament to get that monkey off your back. But, how far can the team go? That's where my mind has shifted, and it's kind of been holding there for a while, despite some of their ups and downs. I think they can come out of the West Coast. Yesterday was big, man. I mean, SC needed to be desperate. They came out. You know how athletic they are. There's really no system for them. I mean, they kind of just roll the ball out there and say, go out athlete, and similar to Maryland, right, where on paper and from a measurables and athleticism standpoint, they should kill you. But Nebraska just played smart, gritty basketball despite being 14-29 at the rim. Like, that's the next domino to fall for me, is can they have a game where they hit their threes and they're good in the paint, right? Can they be a little bit better in the paint? And listen, I think Rink's got a little bit more left in him. And you'll probably need it Tuesday, right? If you get your Rink is back game, it'd be pretty important timing wise to get it against UCLA.
Here's another thing about Price and Sam. Well, one thing about that, it's kind of ironic about Sam. Everybody talks about his defense, and yesterday you saw a glaring example of why he is so important to Nebraska's offense. It was I don't want to say standing around. That's not the case, but there was just, the offense was a lot crisper, and it relies on motion. We've all noticed that and gotten used to it now. The way Nebraska flows around the perimeter, looking for that open three and using as much of the shot clock as possible. But the flow was just not there, and it wasn't as crisp in the first half when he sat. And when he was out there, it was the offense that got better. And yeah, he sparked with his D. He got his hand on a couple of deflections and whatnot. But his importance to, making sure that offense is running as efficiently as it's supposed to, it wasn't doing that with Jamarcus Lawrence. So Sam being out there for the second half made the offense better. And then Price, I think maybe since the Iowa game, has started to look to it. Not everything is looking for the three anymore. Mm-hmm. He has been a much more willing, driver to the basket, and he's gotten some of those, Sam Hoiberg reverse layups that he wasn't getting necessarily in the first half of the season. And his 2-point field goals are what are mounting up and helping him, get to the high 20s and 30-point games. I think what he hit, was it 4 threes yesterday or something like that? It wasn't an ungodly amount where he hit
5.
Was it 5? Yeah, it wasn't like he hit 7, 8 or something like that. He was driving to the basket, and that's also a byproduct of having that offense flow so well that it spreads the defense out, and he's able to identify the lanes, and that wasn't there in the first half when Sam was on the bench.
It's the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. Proud of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, as we're talking Nebraska's win over USC. Huskers going to get some LA time before they gear up for UCLA on Tuesday night. But we touched on Price. We've hit on Rink a little bit, and, of course, thrown some roses towards Sam because of his importance. Let's spend a moment on Lawrence, too, because he's a guy that picks his spots to score, has had some trouble at times at the rim. And just from a turnover standpoint, and it goes to your point, Elijah and Bill, about what happened when Sam went out on offense. That's when a flurry of Nebraska's turnovers happened. And I just, there's been a little unsteadiness with the ball. And again, this is nitpick area. But Nebraska still has some time before Chicago and before the end of the regular season where they can get everybody right. Right now, what would you guys say Nebraska's operating at? What percentage? What would you give them here, either as a grade or a score out of 10 when it comes to playing at 10 out of 10 level? Where are they at on that scale?
Too many first half rock fights within themselves. The Maryland game and the USC game in the first half, having to dig out
the Purdue start,
all that. They put a lot of pressure on themselves to come back in the second half. The good news is they've got the confidence and the belief that they can come back in the second half because they have proven it throughout the course of the season. It's a very good second half team. Perhaps another team on campus should know how to come out of the locker room at halftime. But I put him at maybe a 7 or an 8, and that might be because we don't have the same. We have not seen the same rink mass now that we saw in the non-conference in the first part of conference play. He just looks like he's wearing down. But one thing about, so maybe that averages out. They're a 5 or a 6 in the first half, and they're an 8, 9 in the second half. And yesterday probably pretty close to a 10 the way they dominated. And I said you could demoralize USC pretty easily, and they certainly did that. But I think probably 7-8 is probably where they are. And the one thing about, looking at this team going ahead into the NCAA tournament, and I think we all agree that winning in Chicago is not all that important. Maybe get one, but don't worry about, cutting down the nets, which is just a strange thing.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. We've already won the crown. Okay, what more do we need in the trophy case than to go with the crown than, to go to hang a Sweet 16 or better banner? But I think Nebraska is going to be a real problem in the second games of the weekend in the NCAA tournament. If you got a chance to prepare for Nebraska, and I think we've seen teams in the conference play that have had a chance to scout out. Iowa, for example, it was perfect in the way they defended Nebraska. But I think if you beat, win your game on Thursday or Friday, and you got to turn around and play Nebraska Saturday, Sunday, I don't think that's going to be an easy scout for anybody.
I think you're 1,000%. I mean, that's Nebraska's system, not only defensively. I mean, good luck, and offensively, there's so many different ways and actions that old Fred can draw up, and just their offense in general. I mean, there's different ways to get you, to stretch you, and then the different balance they have on offense. That's a thing. I mean, Nebraska routinely, one thing that hasn't fallen off is Nebraska's got 3 to 4 guys, Elijah and Bill, in double figures. So yeah, Price will go for 33, but you're going to have a collection of other guys that get 8 to 10 to 12, and then you'll have another kind of co-high scorer. And yesterday it was Frager again, who, man, he was also a spark. That 1-2 of him and Frager and Sam was big time. And Frager did a great job, man. Not only hitting some threes when he was open, but he's so savvy with his shot selection. Like, you don't see the guy take too many bad shots as a redshirt freshman, which is unique. And he just kept getting to the rim. And the more chippy it got, I mean, for the love of God, the guy got tackled going to the rim for a dunk and no whistle. He didn't let it bother him. He just kind of doubled down and kept driving in and would kind of snake his way to the rim and finish. He just kept attacking the rim. And that's another facet to the offense that you got to worry about in a 24-hour to 48-hour turnaround.
And we talk about Nebraska being a second half team is potentially that scout. The reason why is that teams, hey, they have this great game plan in place. They've been seeing how the teams like Purdue and Illinois and Michigan beat Nebraska, where you're going to be more physical with them. You're going to try to muck things up. And then Nebraska halftime, and it's not just Fred. I'll circle Fred. He's a great coach, and we all know the X's and the O's with Fred with his offense are spectacular. But I'll also add, it's such a mature team that I think they've seen so much this season and in their basketball careers that they also get to halftime. Whenever Fred starts talking X's and O's at halftime, I think something clicks with them as well, that they kind of they get it. They see how a team wants to beat them. They see how a team is prepared for them, and they say, okay, we know how to attack this team in the second half, because it's been so many cases now this year of Nebraska looking somewhat pedestrian in the first half, and then they roll the ball out in the second half, and it is just utter domination from Nebraska. I'm not like too upset about Nebraska being a quote unquote second half team, because it just feels like by the time the second half rolls around and they get that action going, it just feels like they get it. They understand how a team wants to beat them, and they understand how to go out there and overcome. And again, part of that I think is Fred, but I think this team just has the maturity to understand how to go out there and attack how a defense wants to play them with as much as they've seen this year. Excuse me.
Better to be a good second half team than a good first half team,
right?
And let it slip away, right?
This is a good first half team, Bill. Well, Elijah, you were confident from the jump about this thing as we were watching. You're like, dude, they'll handle this. They're fine. They're good. Nebraska's going to have this. As you were paying your tab, you're like, oh, it'll be okay. And Bill's like, yeah, SC's going to just, I think, wet themselves was uttered. And away we go. But a lot of that had to do with Nebraska.
Well, and the two things I circled, the first being that this team always seems to have the right second half adjustments in place for the reasons I just laid out. And then secondly was what I said at the top of the show. Sam Hoiberg is coming back in the second half. You get to halftime down 5, and I said that's an absolute win for Nebraska. With as much as went wrong for them in the first half, I mean, Jamarcus didn't look comfortable with the ball in his hands. Sam's sitting on the bench. Price didn't quite heat up in the first half. I know he knocked down a couple of threes, but you kind of felt like, okay, this guy's going to knock down a couple of threes because he always seems to. And it just, watching that game was just like, they're going to be fine. It's what this team has been all season long. And the amount of times they've come out in the second half with their hair on fire and just blow a team out. I'm sitting there watching that game like, the worry level was low for me as long as the refs didn't screw it up. And they were screwing it up in the first half, but I feel like we're not talking about this. I thought the refs had a much better second half. Huh? Maybe they made some halftime adjustments as well.
Can we not kick a dog at the arena?
That's just, I mean, Brian, there's 3 pups behind you right now that are, I mean,
look, Fred mentioned it after the game. What was said at halftime? Well, I don't think I can
can't
say
repeat that.
Yeah. So, okay. If you're going to have your Mick Cronin moments, have it behind the scenes when nobody's watching. Now, maybe the Husker Vision cameras will give us a cinematic review of what was said at halftime, and that'd be kind of fun. And
you know what it is going to be? It's going to be a CGI imposed scene of the desert from Casino. Right. Okay. There's going to be Lenzer, and then there's going to be Fred, and Fred's going to be in a car speeding out to the desert, pick a Husker that is Robert De Niro's character, and you hear the narration. When Nikki wants to meet me out in the desert, it's usually not good. There's a lot of holes in the desert. And I give myself 50-50 odds of coming back. So
you're saying that maybe there was a fish wrapped in newspaper when they got to the locker room.
I don't know about that. I'm more
Johnny
of the
Fontaine message, when they got into the locker room at halftime.
His horse's head.
Yeah,
I was thinking more of the Joe Pesci epic 74 F-bombs in 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
Look, whatever it was, it worked. Probably a little different than, Coach Osborne halftime adjustment speech. But Fred got their attention. They got it done. And people in the stream are talking as I'm seeing this, this ought to be, Price Sanford ought to be first team all Big Ten. I don't disagree with that. I don't you would have a top 5 team, especially one that was predicted to be 12 to 14 in the conference, and not have a first team all conference player. But I don't know how you don't throw Sam into that mix. Every press conference after a game that I can recall, maybe it's not every single one, but coaches say, well, Sam made a difference. And Musselman did yesterday. Like, one of the first things he said in his post-game presser was, well, Sam Hoiberg made a difference. And every coach says that, and that's got to be noted by people who, and I don't think Sam's motivated by, all conference selections. We tried to drill that into him in class as well as everybody else. But how would he not be? He's the most valuable player on one of the top teams in the Big Ten Conference. And I'm not saying he's better than anybody at Michigan, but nobody's more valuable, and that was on display yesterday, than Sam is to his team on one of the best teams in the league. Now, I think maybe he'll be a second team guy. I don't think he was even on the list for National Defensive Player of the Year amongst the finalists, which is stunning to me. Maybe you have to have a write-in, ballot at the end, but what he means to that team was clearly evident yesterday, and why he ought to be at least a second team all Big Ten player, and I think an honorable mention All-American.
So, you're plus 13 on the offensive glass, which is just huge. You got more and extra possessions because of it. You scored off of those, and it was impressive, and it's something that our buddy Game Dog checks in on here when it comes winning the rebounding battle. Going to have to do it again Tuesday. Another question here, and Bill, you weren't quite in the athletic department yet, but when it comes to legendary halftime speeches, the Auburn game, I remember that. I was alive during it, but I was really, really young. I do know with our past conversations with Dave Remington, you had the crowd booing maybe for the first time at Memorial Stadium during the Osborne era. And
I think
you turned to Turner Gillett in the second half, right?
Yeah, that's what I think. Tom whispered to his team those sweet little words, those 3 words, Turner, get in there, and the most important recruit in Nebraska football history, Turner Gill, took over the second half. I think Nebraska won that 17-3, as I recall. That was 81, and then they, should have won 2 national titles after that. Thanks for bringing up that memory. But yeah, that was, Turner, get in there.
Well, and Brian Snetley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, lays out. I read this morning, and Mitch, a dear friend of the show, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, his story on Sam is really good, with just not only how competitive him and his twin brother Charlie are, but just kind of the mentality that goes in. And Fred talked a little bit about that in the article. So go read that from Mitch. But that really is the mentality. It goes beyond the physical of the plays he makes or the steals or the harassment or the passes. I mean, it is all about bringing everybody with him. And there's guys on the team that come in ready to go, like, Price is a competitor. These guys are wired right, but Sam's the ringleader for it going in, ready to just go drill somebody for about 40 minutes.
And if Nebraska does finally get the monkey off their back, win a tournament game, who's the first guy on this team people are going to remember from this team in 20 years?
Oh, without a doubt.
It's without a doubt Sam Hoiberg. People are going to say, man, that Sam Hoiberg team that finally won the NCAA, it's not going to be that Fred Hoiberg team. It's not going to be that Price Sanford team. It's not going to be, that Rink Mass team. It's going to be that team with Sam Hoiberg that finally won an NCAA tournament game. I don't think it's crazy to say that somewhere down the road, we could be having a conversation about Sam having his jersey hanging in the rafters at Pinnacle Bank Arena. He's been that valuable to this team. And it's his value with this team combined with his story. And we hit that a couple weeks ago, just how special his story has been, going from walk-on bench player that, hey, the student section's cheering because he gets in and it's the coach's kid. And what a against all odds story that he's made his way into this basketball game that's a blowout and he got a bucket. He is the most valuable guy on this team right now.
That the steal he had against Maryland a couple of years ago that kind of sealed the deal. It was like, wow, that's a great highlight for him to have, playing for his dad, getting in there and making a key steal and preserving the win. Hope it was all worth it. Glad to see him and enjoy the end of the bench. And that was just the beginning of it. And you're right, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I can't. If I go back, having watched Nebraska basketball now for over 50 years, probably, clearly Bob Siegel is, one of the greatest of all time, a Fairbury legend. But Teron Lue, Jack Moore, there are a lot of similarities to Sam and Jack Moore, not just demographically, and the fact that they're both, 5'10" or 6 foot, sort of. But the way they played the game, and I don't think anybody necessarily has come along in that like Jack Moore, and people will remember Sam Hoiberg forever here. And there's no question he's arguably the most popular player in Nebraska basketball history, next to, I think Teron's up there.
Pike
is up there, but it's a
short list, brother.
It's a short list, but for what he has meant in that building and to have gone to Pius and all that, and look, we're partial to him. Everybody knows that. Yep. But as objective as I possibly can be, and maybe Bob Siegel's a stretch, but as objectively as I possibly can be, I cannot imagine that he is not one of the 2 or 3 most popular players in Nebraska basketball history.
And again, I think someday there should be a conversation. If Nebraska gets the monkey off the back, if they win the NCAA tournament game,
win.
About getting that Hoiberg jersey up in the rafters. I'm being 100% honest with you. Even if that doesn't happen, Sam's a guy, win, if, whatever you want to say, that NCAA tournament win comes, you should be a guy that should never have to buy a beer in Lincoln, Nebraska.
He better. He's going to be making a pretty good coin, you know?
He's already
I love
there.
The guy, but come on, a little something for the effort.
He's already there, brother. Your money's no good here. And same with Coach Hoiberg, and quite honestly, same with this team. They go get that one. It's going to be so incredible.
This is Sweet 16 good.
I know.
Because of the second day of the weekend, and Elite 8 good. But I'm looking, I'm watching Arizona and I'm watching Houston, and Iowa State, I think, is a real headache defensively. As good as Nebraska is defensively, Iowa State, I think, is a step ahead in that regard. Michigan, that's the best I've seen Michigan play, and their performance over Illinois is one of the best performances by any team this season, and they got beat by Duke. Now, that's 6-7 teams that I think probably are, a step ahead of Nebraska. But, a short practice, short scout, that's tough. It's like it's like preparing for the option.
That's the best way to put it. Nebraska basketball is like trying to prep for the option in minimal time. No, the teams you just laid out do a lot of things nobody else in the world can do. Is first and foremost, you look at a team like Arizona, you look at a team like Michigan, Duke, right? Houston, and Houston's got a whole bunch of dudes that just want to play defense and rebound, and then they've sprinkled in some freak athletes and scores.
And so the best coach I've ever been around.
And you've spent a lot of time around Kelvin. I mean, he takes no BS, and it's it quite frankly is kind of military-esque with Kelvin Sampson, and they play well, dude. He's great. So you've got teams that maybe are a little bit better naturally offensively. They have more Price Sanfords, or they have more Sam Hoibergs on their team as far as the mentality and the ability. And then they've got a little bit more athleticism, maybe a lot more athleticism. Part of the charm with this Nebraska basketball team is they just out-effort you. And I think that's super endearing. And it's not a slight or a backhanded compliment. It's the truth. You get out-athleted sometimes, but it doesn't mean you're going to get beat. So there is a little bit of a kind of, obviously, that top seed line, and then maybe a couple of 2 seeds, and then I think it's up in the air for everybody else to make a run. And I think Nebraska's part of that.
Nebraska gets out-athleted in most games in the Big Ten this year.
They do.
And they go, like USC was athletically and talent-wise, like you look at that team and you go, wow, like, the team could be special. But they're everything that I dislike about modern basketball, that USC team.
They don't give a damn.
You have guys that are playing iso ball. Everyone seems to be playing for themselves. You have big men that don't care to rebound or block shots or play on the inside. Like, everything about that USC team is what I dislike about modern basketball. Nebraska is everything I like about modern basketball. And people complain about Steph Curry's influence in the three-point shot in basketball. Hey, you know what? Whenever you have a team like Nebraska that's not iso ball threes, it's the team working with togetherness, with that chemistry to generate an open three-point look, and it falls. So fun to watch. You have 5 guys that all want to do the dirty work and go in and grab rebounds. I mean, Nebraska, Game Dog brought it up, the 3 straight games you've out-rebounded your opponent. It's a full team effort. You have the smallest guy on the floor in Sam Hoiberg doing the dirty work, and he's usually up there in terms of rebounds for this team. Like, USC is everything I hate with modern basketball. It's gross. I hate watching a team that plays like that, but Nebraska is everything that I love, where guys embrace their role. They play with togetherness. They knock down threes. Whenever someone goes out there and makes a play, you have whenever Rink dunks it, go look at the bench reaction whenever Rink goes and dunks a basketball. They're going crazy over there. Burke's standing on the bench, and it's like he's never seen that before in his life, because maybe he hasn't. But everyone loves whenever someone else in the team goes out and makes a play. It's not about every man for themselves. It is about playing together, and the win is the most important thing at the end of the day. That's what makes this Nebraska team so special, is the togetherness that they play with, the kind of against all odds nature whenever they're playing teams with better athletes and guys that had more stars next to their name coming out of high school. That's why, they could run into a team that out athletes them in the NCAA tournament. And it's not to complain about what you just said, Schmidt. It's not to
no, you're good. And listen, Kenny's right. Like, there's a conditioning element. Nebraska has advantages on some of the teams they play. It's not a whole full team of tryhards. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what your point is about USC, what should happen versus what does happen, or what could happen versus what does happen, is why this Nebraska team's captured this entire state and a lot of the college basketball world. They're easy to root for because of how they play with one another and how they go about their business. So
when do you think they realized what they had? I mean, I know that this team's been together a while, and Sam and Rank are best buddies, and you brought Jamarcus Lawrence back, so he knows the system. But at some point, you can come into the season and say, I really like what we have. If you're Fred Hoiberg, and we've kind of installed a system here. I remember talking to Sam a little bit about, Garcia coming in and, working his way, and Oogie, they talk about just getting in and they having to understand the system. But what point was it during the course of this season where Nebraska went from hanging on and fighting back to beat Oklahoma in Sioux Falls, or surviving the 2 games in Kansas City over New Mexico and Kansas State, where they, you look back at those games and you think, well, Nebraska barely won those games, and they probably right now would win them by 20 or more. But at what point did they start believing that this thing is actually for real, and I'm going to buy into what my coach says every single day because we have something special?
I think here's your timeline. Your timeline first for me is, and it was mentioned in the stream, but it's winning the crown. And I think during the Crown tournament, you saw Cale Jacobson really gain confidence. And I think he's been huge off the bench with his size and ability to defend. And he might score 12. He might hit a couple of threes. He might take 2 shots. But he is vital. I mean, Nebraska's bench has been killer, specifically with Cale and Frager and whatever you get from Garcia. But the Crown, the returners, said, all right, you put a little run together. This is what it can be. I think the Oklahoma win, getting a tight win up there, coming back like they did, they were down 16 in that game, really kind of sparked or lit the fuse for confidence. And then with Michigan State at home, you beat a big dog, you beat an Izzo team in a rock fight, was good. But I think the kicker's got to be Illinois that launched them.
And I think there's a difference. I think Fred probably knew he had a team that could go win an NCAA tournament game as soon as Price Sanford committed.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a missing piece.
Fred, yeah, that's the best way to put it. The missing piece that Fred went and targeted in the portal, that was such a huge win for him. I think that's probably whenever he knew. I think this team knew they could be special whenever they went and punked Wisconsin at home.
Yeah, that was a freaking ass kicking. I mean, that was 30.
Yeah, I don't think they beat Illinois on the road if they don't go and beat Wisconsin by 30, because they knew at that point in time, we're
on the Average Joe Sports Show.
we're not just going to be a team that can go compete for winning the first NCAA tournament game. We're a team that can go compete for a Big Ten crown. I think that was the moment things clicked for them. Like, we all saw that Creighton win, and we thought, okay, Creighton's not that good this year. You didn't know how good Oklahoma was. It was whenever you saw a Wisconsin team that had a potential first-team All-Big Ten guy on it that you went and just smoked, despite the fact that they outsized you, despite the fact that they had more stars by their name in the recruiting process, despite the fact that Wisconsin's always seemingly had your number over the last couple of years. I think that was whenever they went, okay, we're a good team this year. We're not a team that can win an NCAA tournament game this year, just win an NCAA tournament game this year. we're a team that can go out there and beat almost every team in the Big Ten.
Going on a run, man. And the month of March finally here, and Husker basketball fans are geeked up for what's in store.
But now you have a UCLA team that's only lost one game at home all year long.
But Mick's making them walk home from Minnesota, so they're going to be tired.
They're different at home versus on the road. On the road, this UCLA team has been brutal. I don't think I was talking with Justice about this during our high school game last night. He wasn't surprised to see Minnesota win that game. The computers weren't surprised to see Minnesota win that game because UCLA has just been night and day at home versus on the road. They beat Purdue at home this year. I mean, that's a super good win. They went and beat Illinois at home. That comeback just
down 23 points.
They are a very, very difficult team to beat at home. Nebraska's taking care of step one, and we all kind of said going into this one, you'll take 1-1 on the West Coast road trip, and you took care of business in the game that you were supposed to go out and win. UCLA is, hey, if you got them at home, I'd pick Nebraska to go win this game by 10, but you have them on the road, and UCLA is much, much more difficult to beat at home this season.
Scanning their schedule right now as to who got them, and it was Arizona. Arizona is the only team to beat them at home by 4.
Oh yeah, a 1 seed.
And that was November 14th. That was game 4 of the season.
And they've got USC next weekend to wrap up the regular season. But I'm amused by the schedule that Nebraska's already there, and Minnesota has to come back home to
a sore subject, Bill.
to play. I'm hoping that the Big Ten schedulers next year send UCLA to Rutgers, and on the back half of the weekend they've got a home game against USC, and then the next weekend they go to Maryland, and then they come back home to play Oregon. I think that would be amusing. I don't think Mick Cronin's going to be around for that, though. So they'll probably.
You think he's going to go find another gig, or they whack him?
I think that I don't. I think
he's out. Act. He's out on the Big Ten, dude. He's tired of it. Doesn't like it. And he's a good coach. I like him.
100%. But I just think the act wears thin sometimes, and it's just time to move on. Well, it's ejecting your own player. For that wasn't that vicious of a foul at all. I don't even think it was going to be a flagrant.
Probably kicked him out because it wasn't that vicious of a foul, Bill.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. But they're very difficult to watch because you just don't know what's going on the sidelines. And I was always amused, or have been amused in my career, when people would rip on Bo Pelini or Bob Knight, and I've been around some other ones that. Larry Eustace wasn't, always glued together, right? And Mick Cronin's, I just think it's time for them to part ways, even though they're winning, But some teams need to just find somebody new to have a new culture.
Let me address Kobe's little barb here. I like how Mick coaches. I like his intensity. I liked what he did at Cincinnati. Didn't know if it'd work at UCLA. But he has brought in a ton of talent, got him back to a Final Four. Hadn't done that under the ATM known as Jim Herrick back in '95. So, yeah, is his act thin? For sure. Is he a grouchy, angry little elf? For sure he is.
He goes to the same tailor as Buzz Williams.
I kind of get a kick out of him, and I think he's a good coach.
I think the comparison to Bo Pelini is kind of spot on because do I think he's a good coach? Yes. I don't think he's good enough for all of the shenanigans that come along with him being your coach to make it worth it. That's the problem with it.
That's fair. You better win something if you're going to be an a-hole 24/7.
UConn. Look at UConn with Hurley. He's an a-hole 24/7, but they win. So everyone puts up with it. You can't be a 500 team in conference being an a-hole all the time, or else people are going to get worn out by your act, and that's what it feels like with Cronin.
And the same thing, it's just the travel and all that stuff. It
out of your hands, dude. I mean, it is. You just got to suck it up.
Brad Underwood said, we travel nice. We
eat great.
We eat great. We stay in nice hotels. We got a private plane. We're fine. Right. You are fine. And so are they.
Cronin would be the type of guy to call his fans fair weather and then to get up there in a press conference and say they can fire me if they want to. Like, I think Baltini's the perfect comparison.
Yeah. I just remember him, I think it was last year that UCLA was in Lincoln, maybe 2 years ago, and maybe last year. I got to double check. But so he's in this super loud plaid suit on the sideline. And then he's in his, his Jordan warm up, and he would pause before answering questions. Had a tone to him. I don't think he was super pleased because I think Nebraska beat UCLA, and he just is kind of no nonsense, no BS. And yeah, I mean him going after that reporter and taking some shots, and then kind of flipping around his tone after they beat Illinois. I mean, he was the first to give his players credit. He was proud of them for how they played, but it's after probably 2 weeks of killing them, not only during practice, but also kind of through the media. So mix and acquired taste, right?
Probably.
They didn't play each other this season yet, Kobe. It's last season for Nebraska UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was one of the high water marks for the Fred Hoiberg era at Nebraska was beating UCLA, and it was one of those. Oh, this is that's nice. Well, we had a good afternoon.
And maybe it was the tournament team that did it. I don't remember if it was it had to be last year.
It was a home game.
Yeah, it was a home game. They beat them. Fellas, as we wind down the Sunday Live, about 10 minutes left. Husker Baseball. What a thrill Friday was. And got to do it 2 days in a row. Nebraska didn't. Too many walks, too many hit batters. It was wrong.
Yeah, that felt more. And I've been using this series as a way to say this is your test against an SEC or ACC power, the type of team that's just kicked your ass in regionals the last couple of years. Yesterday felt like a regional ass kicking. That's what yesterday felt like. You couldn't buy a strike in the first couple of innings. You find yourself down by 8. Hey, credit to Nebraska's hitters for at least continuing to fight and showing some life. But that was an ass kicking yesterday, plain and simple. And the only reason it wasn't worse is because I think Auburn took their foot off the gas.
Well, Nebraska
was run rule.
Nebraska was on the wrong end of a full house.
Yeah,
3 4s and 2 2s, and that game was over. Auburn put a 4 spot in 3 innings. Nebraska battled back a little bit. Once it was 8-0 or something like that. It was like, all right, bullpen by committee. Let's just survive the day. And I'm not surprised by Auburn being a little more motivated after what transpired on Friday night. But Nebraska got a win, in the marquee game. That's Friday night. And now they've got a chance to, we forget what happened yesterday. I've been around baseball a long time, and you always hear them say, that's baseball. There's always tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's today. But Nebraska got one. They got a win at Auburn on a Friday night, and they fought to win it. That's a game that's going to last a long time for Nebraska's confidence, but it's always going to be on the resume come the end of the season. If Nebraska is a top 4 team in the Big Ten, I think that's the minimum we should ask for them, if not better. But that is a marquee look at what we can do win, especially after you had the win over what you did to Florida State. That was significant. And what's the other marquee win that they had the first weekend?
They beat somebody.
Yeah. Anyway. But they've got good non-conference wins already, and to win one at Auburn is really important. So hopefully it's a much more competitive game today, and they come back and start they've got Omaha, I think, on Tuesday, and open up Haymarket Park. The softball team, by the way, was supposed to play Oklahoma State today, and they've canceled that game because of weather, and Nebraska's got to travel back. They've got the next 2 weeks. We'll be at home with non-conference games, and then you open up, I think, with Michigan and Big Ten play. So they've got 2 weeks at Bowling Stadium, and I would imagine that will be fairly well attended because this is a team that could get to the Women's College World Series.
And Husker Berserker here asks, when did Auburn take their foot off the gas? I'll clarify. I meant kind of through those middle innings when Nebraska did cut the lead back down to 4. I think when they went up 8-0,
it was 8-4. Nebraska at least showed some resistance, right?
Yeah, it was like a case there. Auburn's up 8-0. All right, this game's in the bag. Nebraska shows a little bit of resistance, and here comes Auburn to go. Okay, let's put this thing away. That's what I meant when I was referring to foot off the gas. Was Auburn had that thing won in the first inning. And I think everyone in that ballpark, including Nebraska and Auburn, knew it. Nebraska showed a little bit of fight, and then Auburn, okay, never mind. Let's put this thing away.
Jeez. Mick Cronin just kicked my dog. Mick Cronin, along with my wife, are the only 2 people in the world that don't like the German. I get it. But fellas, a thought before we say goodbye on spring football, and a reaction to Coach Rhule out through the first week when it comes to quarterback play, offensive line, defensive setup, and all that good stuff.
It says a lot that there was barely any social media reaction to the fact that Matt Rhule spoke yesterday.
Yeah.
No one cares right now.
Yeah.
It's I've never seen a spring like this. And I'm usually the guy that is sitting back and being like, this is
spring ball.
Everyone's going to overreact to everything that's being said. There's going to be a spring quote unquote game at the end of things, and people are going to have overreactions. I'm usually the old man that is yelling at the clouds, being like, spring football doesn't matter. I am shocked to see, or not shocked, I get it, but it is jarring. That's the better way to put it, to see just how little people care about.
It's falling off a cliff.
No one cares.
I mean, they asked him yesterday about the hiring of the flag football coaches for 2028, whenever that season begins. I guess if there's anything that stood out to me is that Danny Kaelin is back, and I think that probably gives Nebraska a pretty solid quarterback room, and that was a really big problem going into the transfer portal season, because you knew the marriage was over. And TJ Lateef, who had a great game at UCLA, looked rather pedestrian toward the end of the season. And I know he got hurt in the Iowa game, did not look good against Utah. We don't know a lot about Calandria, and maybe they need to put him out there more, as a spokesman. And maybe we need to hear from players more than just in press conference settings. Used to be you knew Nebraska players and assistant coaches a lot better than you do now. But I think, bringing Kaelin back from Virginia and understanding it's probably going to be as a backup role for the next couple of years says a lot. But I thought I remember them saying when he got here that if you leave Nebraska, you're not going to be welcome back. Apparently that was written in pencil, because they were certainly glad to have him come back. And I think that does give Nebraska really quality depth in the quarterback room. That's really, what I took out of it. And the press conference was just like, hey, we're still around. Just to let you know. What's it going to be like if Nebraska is playing for the Final Four on the 28th or whenever that's going to be?
It's the Elite Eight.
The Elite Eight. And they might want to think about moving the spring game, and just.
It's a good problem, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm shocked. Nobody is talking about it.
Well, I'll say this with the football part of it, and Kaelin, to your question, Bill, about whether you're welcomed back. I think Kaelin was such a stand-up guy. Anyway, the first rodeo here with the recruitment process, we want you. Oh, hold on a sec. There's a family legacy that's a 5-star that has been a late addition. They took both of them, but I don't want to say jerked around, because I think Nebraska was very clear on what their quarterback board was. And they loved Danny Kaelin, but he was below Dylan Raiola on the quarterback board. And Danny came in, competed. They paid him pretty well to be a guy that would come in and compete. And you left in good graces. And you want a kid like Danny Kaelin on your team. So,
well, I totally agree. I just remember saying, if we want you and you leave, you're not welcome back. I'm like, what? That's odd. And Obviously, that has changed. That's just a small little thing, but I think Nebraska's quarterback room is in much better position with those three than it really has been in the last couple of years. I'll just say that. I think that this is a quarterback room for the team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree.
And not a green room for somebody else.
I love it. It's Bill Doleman. It's Elijah Herbel. It's Chris Schmidt. And it's the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. Like and subscribe. Check out the show. Tell a friend. Can find on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. 7 days a week for you on YouTube. 5 on the radio and the Average Joe Network as well. Flagship station KFOR. So tune into us there. Also out in central Nebraska, Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island on the Superstation. Duda and crew out there, and our friends at News Talk 900 in Columbus. It spans a good part of the state. Merch. Tell us about the merch.
First, I was going to say it was great to see Duda. He was yesterday at the Lincoln High and Kearney game. Got to chat with him just briefly.
We'll see we'll see Duda for Southwest and Kearney girls state coverage.
What's this Schick and Nick thing you sent me last night? Are we having some West Side Story little?
No, it's not a Schick and Nick thing. It's Nick Baugh. Nick's amazing talent, good dude. Same with Schick. But we Michael Severe, friend of the show, has put out his bracket of 32 when it comes to best Nebraska podcasts.
Oh,
we came in as a.
I didn't even know we qualified for the tournament.
You thought we were sweating it out on Selection Sunday, huh?
Well, we were a
3 seed. We were a 3 seed, and I think we got a fork put in us by old Nick Baugh.
I thought we were.
Or is the voting done yet?
I thought we were going to the Crown, so apparently, okay.
Hey, I'd love the Crown. We get some money at the end of it if we win. That'd be great.
Well, isn't it true at the Crown they serve Crown, so you know I'm going?
Yeah, right. I mean, we'll even take those guys with us. What the hell, you know?
But big thank you, Brian Snitley. He got his hat. He told us the merch high quality, fast shipping. Go get yourself a hat.
Can you put up a link of the merch?
Where?
I mean, in the stream chat, but can you pull up anything on the YouTube channel?
I can pull up the old merch on the YouTube channel.
Let's just do a quick little showcase of the merch. You're welcome to get the sweatshirts, the golf shirt, the hats, the coffee mugs.
Let's see here. I got
maybe.
I love the fact that we started off.
Buy something with that logo on it.
Yeah, and see, we need a different picture there. I know I'm at the single barrel, thumbs up, and we need all of us in the picture. All right. I want to get the zip up. The white zip up's good.
It is. Yeah, look at that thing.
The gray sweatshirt's money. Where's Gertie?
I think this Howl at the Moon shirt is great. Look at us there. It's my wolf.
Oh my God.
It's
Gertie hates the Howl at the Moon shirt.
Where's the Shaggy Put Your Glock Away t-shirt?
Well, we'll get that edited up. We'll have Shaggy actually holding the Glock in the holster.
That's because that screams responsibility. Know where your guns and your pets are at. Make sure your pets are sound gun owners.
Yeah, unfortunately, right now the koozies are sold out. Those are going to be back in stock here soon. I know those are high quality. Nice. We got the swimming trunks. We got the bikini. We got everything you could ever possibly want.
What about the Bill? Do we have the Bill Doleman map?
No, we don't have that yet.
No, Bill's got it. He's pulling the map out.
We got one of these. We could get a map, and we could get a map and just put like wherever Average Joe is. Vinny out in NoCal, Vic out in Denver.
Yep.
We got Tampa today.
Black Hills Brennan.
Yeah.
And
Game Dog and Captain out of Omaha. Where's Kobe out of? Is Kobe a North Platte guy? We'll just ask Kobe.
Vic says in the description, we'll start putting the link up to the merch in the description of every single show. That'll be helpful. I know you can also, if you're a podcast listener, you can go check out the description on the podcast. Let me check and see exactly what I think it says something along the lines. Let me see here. Support the show. It says support the show in the description of the podcast. You can click on that, and that should take you right to our merch shop as well. So if you're a podcast listener, you want to check out the merch, because I know We just scrolled through it on the stream, but if you're in podcast listening, you cannot see anything that we just talked about. You can go and see it if you click support the show in the description of each and every Average Joe Sports Show podcast. So there you go.
And,
All
if Nick and those guys, happen to, I guess, beat us or whatever the case might be, good on them. But in my mind, we're already at the crown.
Okay. We're going to pour one here in about 2 seconds, and enjoy your Sunday. With the average
season.
Yes, with the Average Joe Sunday Live. We'll have more info for you for next Sunday, 3:00 tip against Iowa, Senior Day. So we're thinking of a special Average Joe road show in front of Nebraska, Iowa, and then a post-game thought. And then stay tuned with us through Nebraska's march through March. It's Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We'll talk to you next time with the Average Joe Sports Show. Thanks.